Sudhismritipurananam alayam narunalayam namami bhagavatpadam Shankaram lokashankaram. So we are continuing our discussion on this very important book, an introductory work on Advaita philosophy. So we are discussing the 85th verse in the last session. 85, 86 and 87. These verses are very important because they have one simple message. That is, this human body is a wonderful instrument, a magnificent tool in our hands for attaining a higher purpose in life. Instead of looking upon it as a tool, if we start looking upon the body as the most essential thing and the supreme goal in life, if we start worshipping the human body, then we are heading for spiritual degradation. So, the idea of going beyond the body, beyond the sensory world, beyond the world of sensory objects, that is discussed here. Anukshanam yat parihurti krityam anadya vidyakrita bandhamokshanam deha pararthoyam amushya koshani yas sajjadi sum anena hanti. Now, if you worship the body, you are killing yourself. Why? If we identify ourselves as this body alone, then there is nothing great about it. The body is changing anukshanam. Every second, every minute it is changing. And again, there is nothing great about it. There is a very interesting verse elsewhere in Shankaracharya's books. A sense of humor you find here. Tung mamsa rudhirasnayu medo majja asti samkhadir dekhaka bahistuja pinadhadasmat bhakshati kakaihi. Bahistuja pinadhastasmat. So, see, there is nothing in this body that is remarkable, that doesn't require a hand sanitizer if you touch it. That's what it means. And not only that, suppose if you are not, whatever we have in this body, we are not covered by a skin bag, then even crows will eat it, even wild animals will eat away. That is what we consider to be the most precious thing in our possession. That's one outlook. So one angle, if you look at this body, it is absolutely a very despicable thing, nothing to be proud of it. It is nothing but a skin bag, and the contents that you have within the skin bag are things that will not be eaten by wild animals because so filthy and dirty. And this is what we consider the most wonderful, a great achievement. We can find trying to reverse the metabolism, blackening the hair and whitening the teeth. So, with the real evolution of the body is the opposite of it. The hair gets grey and the white gets black. So we have to reverse it. But this is one perception. Another perception is the same body can be used to go beyond itself. We are discussing Vedanta because we are healthy enough to read and understand and think and contemplate. Otherwise, you cannot have a great piece of art, literature, music, architecture, great painting, All these are great accomplishments by great artists and philosophers who could think beyond the body. That's a very important thing. If we identify exclusively this body, then what we need is just 4 square meals, 3 square meals, nothing more, really speaking. But then we want to read books, we want to write, sing, we want to study music, we want to do a great painting. We are interested in music and the paintings, in the marvels of human genius. Oh, you can't think of an Einstein without the idea of going beyond the body. Einstein did not have worried about what happens in this world, what is the origin. No need for him to do that. He would have had a square meal every day and gone to sleep. If you were living at the level of body consciousness alone. So every time when we try to achieve something in life, whether in art, science, music, anything, even philosophy, not necessarily in spiritual life, in any other areas of excellence, of perfection, we can't accomplish anything without lifting our consciousness beyond the bodily level. So, but then this is possible only if we don't worship the body, rather we look upon the body as a magnificent instrument and means for achieving something higher than things of this world. So, that's anukshanam yat parihritya krityam. Deha parathoyam amushya poshane. So, this body is not ours, because it's not going to be there after some time, after some decades. Again, this idea continues. Sarira poshanarthi san ya atmanam didrikshate graham darudhiya nrittva nadim tartum saichati. Anyone who worships his body, which means diverting all attention, our energies, or our skills, just to pamper this human body, what he's doing is, he is trying to cross the ocean, cross the river, sitting on the back of a crocodile, without understanding the crocodile will kill you when you reach midstream, when you reach the middle of the river. So this is an important point. Remember, this book is so famous, so tremendous. It's an important foundational book for the beginners in Vedanta. So 2 aspects are given. At the very beginning you find all these qualifications for a great spiritual teacher are mentioned, elaborated, described with the analogies, metaphors and illustrations. In the 19th verse there is a very wonderful description of the necessary qualifications required for any spiritual seeker, called sadhana sadhushtaya, means 4 fundamental qualifications, 19th verse. And then there is the idea, this body is something wonderful, but we can use this body as a wonderful instrument for a higher purpose only when we look upon this as a tool, as a means for a higher purpose, and not as a goal in itself. There is another one, moha eva mahamruttihu, mumukshohu vabiradishu, moho vinirjidu yena samuktipadam arkati. Who attains spiritual enlightenment? Now, one may ask this question, what is this spiritual enlightenment? You find many things are happening in this world in the name of enlightenment, Kundalini rising. There are courses offered for raising Kundalini, which involves a lot of beating on the chest and stomach and wonderful things, physical exercises. It really happens. But that's not what is meant here. Now, the most wonderful illustration of what spirituality or what enlightenment means The entire world literature can be found in the Kathopanishad, which is in Krishna Yajurveda, one of the branches of Yajurveda. There's a dialogue between a spiritual student, a disciple, and his teacher. The name of the teacher is Yama, and the student is Nachiketa. Now, the dialogue happens like this. There is a story. I mean, the entire philosophy is clothed in the form of a story, a metaphor. The whole book is a metaphor. A little boy reaches the abode of the Lord of Death. There is a story behind it which I don't want to mention, which I already discussed many times, but if you are interested, you can ask questions. I can at that time illustrate. A little boy reaches the abode of death. The angel who is responsible for deciding who is yet ready to go to heaven or hell, or lifespan is gone. When he reaches there, the Lord of the Death is not there. He has gone on an errand somewhere. He had gone out. He returns after 3 days. The boy doesn't eat or drink. He starves himself. He is fasting. He is waiting eagerly for the return of the Lord of Death. When he returns, this angel, the Lord of Death, so it's an angel in a way, it becomes a divine being, so to speak. So he tells the boy, see, you have been waiting for me for 3 days and nights. I'm very sorry I made you wait for so long. So I shall give a compensation. You can ask for 3 boons, each boon for 1 day, for each day that he waited. So what is the first boon? The first boon the little boy is asking is this: I should have a happy life in my family. He had left his home without the permission of his father, a little boy, so to speak. So, Shanta Sankalpa Sumana Yadhasyad Vidamanyu Gautamoma Abhimurtyu Tuprusustama Abhivade Prasida Edatrayanam Prathamam Varamprani. The little boy is anxious. He thinks if he returns home, he has left his home without father's permission. His father will scold him, shout at him. Old Indian family culture, a little boy has no freedom. After all, he should, for his own safety, the father will put him under some restrictions. When you go out of the home, you should inform parents. So this time he had left his home without permission. So Shanta Sumana Yadhasyar Vedamanyu Gautamam Abhimurtyu Tup Prasustama Abhivade Prasida. So my father should be calm and quiet and be happy and should talk to me pleasantly. He should not be angry with me. He shouldn't be unhappy. Yama said, the little boy is asking, he's afraid. Fine, okay, that boon is granted. That boon is granted immediately. Now this boon, the first boon, represents our concern for welfare in this world. Life in this world, our job, insurance, car, home, salary, job security, all these are included. They're all included in this. So the first boon, in a way, is a boon for making sure our life in this world is happy without any problem. So that is granted. But the second boon is coming. The second boon is this. Well, suppose you have everything wonderful in this world, money, wealth, status, job, everything. But you eventually realize that this is not going to last for long. After all, how long can you enjoy? Even the richest man in the world, the happiest man, still how long? If you live for 100 years, that's fine. But not beyond that. So the boy realizes that this happiness has its limitations. So I should enjoy something. I should have something that is sustaining, that is more everlasting. So you had read about Surga, means heaven, going to the abode of the angels, where you can be happy all the time, where there is no decay of the body, no death, no disease, no corona, nothing. So he asked for the second boon. The second boon is this: you should teach me some way, ritual, some spiritual practice that will ensure that I will go to heaven and live there for a long time. So that also is granted. Sattvamagnim surgamadhyeshu mrityu prabruhitam saddhadanaya mahyam surgaloka amrutam bhajande edat varanam didiyena varena. Means the second boon. The second boon is this: I should go to heaven and live there for a long time. Now, again, now remember, at this stage, we all become more philosophical, more spiritual. Some of the rare mystics and spiritual teachers have taught that even heaven is not the highest thing in Vedantic tradition. Because heaven means infinite enjoyment. What you have in this world, at the finite level, you get in a much more comprehensive scale in heaven. So that is also granted. Still, the teacher granted that. The third boon is a request for something much more transcendental, and that is spirituality. Can we have a kind of enjoyment which is not enjoyment of this world, not happiness at the empirical, worldly level, a sense of absolute, everlasting contentment? That's what he's asking for. What's the meaning of human existence? Is there something beyond this body? But this question, even at the philosophical level, has a great significance for the preservation of human civilization. You know, if we were only caring for physical enjoyment, there will be no need for morality, ethics, or higher values. No need for anything more everlasting, more transcendental. But human beings need something more. At least not many. There are few great teachers, great spiritual seekers who always explore this possibility. Is there something higher than the physical? So this boy asked for the third question, third boon. So these three boons and Yama's answer to the request to these three boons represent three levels of human civilization in its evolution. Three civilizational ideals are presented here. First boon, life in this world, all wonderful things, social security, kind of, we call it universal welfare, where everything is taken care of, education, money, job, everything. Second boon, living the same life for a very, very long time. Paradise, so to speak. The third boon is this: Yayam prete vijigitsa manushi astiti yena ayamastiti jaigi edad vidya manisishtas thoyaham vairanam esha varastrutiyaka. Third boon is this. People, the literal meaning is this. The little boy is talking to the teacher. People have different views with regard to what happens to all of us after death. Some people say, well, when this body is gone, that's the end of the journey. Nothing more left. There's a full stop in the journey of human life. But there are others who tell you, well, this body disappears, of course. But that's only a semicolon, not the full stop, not the end of the journey. there is something left intact, which doesn't perish. That's our true nature. The other aspects, the body, the desire for heaven, these are okay, fine. But they have a limitation, they are within time. One day they will come, will enjoy, and then one day they disappear. But there is something higher. It doesn't die when the body dies. And that's our true identity. If you identify yourself with that, that is spiritual enlightenment, liberation. Because we are liberated from our obsession or identity with what is perishable. And we identify ourselves with something imperishable. So we also identify that our true nature is imperishable. Now, 3 levels of evolution. In this context, those who are asking for some higher achievements in material life, even they are above the level of people who consider this body itself as the only goal in life. That's why Sarira Poshanarthisan Yatmanam Didikshade. So anyone who thinks that this body alone, nourishing this body, worshipping this body, considering this body as the supreme goal in itself, they are like a person who is trying to cross the river sitting on the back of a crocodile. And this obsession with this body is technically called by one word in Sanskrit, moha. So moha is literally it means self-delusion. This is the translation. But what does it imply in our real life, moha? When we are within moha, we are not aware of it. But when we are out of it, then we look back, oh, we were in a prison. Now we got liberated from the prison. When you get out of this trap, you look back and you realize, oh, I was in a trap. So when we are also engrossed in the desire and the efforts to accomplish those desires, bodily enjoyments, that condition of human mind is called moha. Moha literally means deluded. But that word itself doesn't explain much. When we cannot think of anything beyond physical things, enjoyments, bodily pleasures, and we are trapped in it, when we cannot get out of it, that state is called moha. So you can find all that happens in this world in a way, whether wars, conflicts, different levels of human activities, all because of moha. All can be included within this umbrella term, moha. If we can get out of it, there will be peace in this world, outside of us and also inside. So here Shankaracharya says, the moha is mahamurtyu, the great death, that literal meaning. Is death, the great death, this moha, this delusion. And how does it function? I am, and this is mine. This is what I am, this is mine. Aham, mama. 2 words are used. Aham means I. When you use the word I, what is meant is this physical body, 6 feet tall, human body structure. This is my true identity. That's the literal meaning of the word aham in this context, when a person is in delusion. Mama means this is mine. So I am this body, this is my true identity, and this belongs to me. So these 2 feelings are behind all civilizational problems. And when humanity has achieved anything remarkable, science, technology, even in technology may be used only to boost this desire, but to force a law of nature, to extract a piece of nature's secrets through experiments or discoveries. That requires the going beyond the physical body, the identity with the physical body. And Shankaracharya says this delusion is Mahamrityu, it is a great death because it kills you. Why? The delusion makes you think you are this body, and the body will certainly die after 100 years since your birth. After living for 100 years, you will die one day. So it is something subject to death. So delusion is death. Getting out of this delusion is liberation. Moho vinirjido yena samukti padam arkati. Now, who is the person who is struggling to achieve liberation? Now, technically, there is a specific category of people who are struggling or trying to get liberation. You can give the classical example because it is so well known. So there are innumerable examples, but Buddha's example is so well known. A prince who was brought up in a palace, living luxury, one day feels that these are all nothing, they're all trash. Because he happened to see another possible alternative. Because when he was taken around the town Lumbini, the capital city of his kingdom, father's kingdom, he saw death, sickness and old age. A dead man, a sick man, old man. And there is a misery in their faces. Then it is said that he met a monk, a saint, in whose face he did not see any misery. So he, on the one hand, he saw firsthand the reality of dukkha, the misery, the unfortunate, the unhappy part of human existence. Then he saw another possible alternative. Somebody who had transcended, gone beyond this dukkha, this misery. And he wanted to find out the secret behind. So he walked all the way, 1300 miles, came to Bodh Gaya and sat under a tree and meditated and became Buddha. That's a long story. So who will have the kind of mindset? Well, I should walk 1300 miles. Only somebody who on the one hand realized the imperfection of this world and intellectually some inner feeling there is a higher possibility. And that happens only when we become aware of this need to go beyond this body identity. Then the next verse, there is a simple illustration example of how this moha, this delusion works. Because if you read English translation, you are likely to misunderstand. See, moham jahi mahamrutyum deha dara sutadishu yam jitva munayo yanti tad vishnohu paramam padam. Now what is this moha? Body, literal meaning needs explanation, or we will misunderstand. Body, wife and children. Human relations is not condemned here. The idea is, I am this physical body and they are my people and I am theirs and they are mine. Now how do you call it moha? There is nothing wrong in it from the human perspective. Nothing wrong in calling your own dear and near ones as yours. This is a philosophical explanation. Now, Vedanta, as you know, believes in these twin doctrines of rebirth and reincarnation, which tells you that your parents were not your parents in your previous life, and your parents won't be your parents in your next life. So this is an interesting thing. So there is a Bhagavata story which illustrates this idea. Chitraketu, a king, his son was 20 years old. He was about to be declared heir apparent. The king was planning to make him his successor. So the kingdom made all preparations, the ministers, everyone was trying to make it a grand celebration, this crowning of the young prince. It's a big event in for any king, So that night the young prince died, who was to be the successor. And you can imagine the ministers, the subject, the people, the king and his wife, courtiers, all became terribly heartbroken, grief-stricken, crying and weeping. So some sages, some wise men, the ministers, philosophers, every king's court will have a group of philosophers to advise the king. They came and tried to console the king, but it was difficult to console him. Finally, one sage came, Narada. He came, he was a divine person. So he came and told the king, he tried to console him. See, look here, your son, he must be getting ready to be born in another life. And he was not your son in the previous life and nor in your next life. So this time he had a wonderful life, but he has passed away. Now you should forget that. Remember, don't ever imagine that it's such a cold-blooded philosophy of negating the sanctity, the kindness and compassion and the joy of human relationship. Not at all. It's a kind of philosophical wisdom applied in the human life situations. But they could not console the king. So the king, the saint then brought this prince back to life. She got up as if getting up from sleep. Then the saint asked him, look here, your parents are crying and weeping. And why don't you console them? The saint had the power to give this dead man a long life. The prince got up as if getting up from sleep, and the saint asked him, you console your parents, they're crying and weeping, your mother, father. Then the prince said, which father? Which mother? Because in his mind, he was seeing a long line of parents from innumerable life cycles. So he could not detect his recent parentage. That was actually a revelation for the king and his wife, father and mother. Oh, that's a reality. He has gone away from our life, so we should understand that truth. So they were consoled. Now this is depicted in a grand fashion in the Bhagavata Purana. So, moha implies a kind of blind obsession to the point of being spiritually enslaved by your desire, by your attachment to something. When you talk about attachment in Vedanta, we should remember this very well. Frequently in Vedanta scriptures, in the translations, you find the word detachment is used. Detachment should be explained. The problem of attachment and the need for detachment are emphasized in many scriptures, many verses, many contexts. Attachment here implies kind of slavish attachment. When we realize it is really a problem. You cannot, like with some, for example, you're attached to drugs, cannot get out of it. That is a kind of attachment. Detachment means the ability to get out of this trap. One may be obsessed with tea and coffee, cannot help drinking so many cups of tea and coffee every day. Doctors may tell him it is a problem. Still he cannot keep drinking coffee and tea all the time, or smoking for the matter. But because of attachment, it's really a trap and a prison, an invisible chain that is binding you, that you want to get out of. That is the real implication of the word attachment. The Sanskrit word which is translated in English as attachment. Not the attachment of a mother to the son or the father, attachment of a son to the mother, nothing like that. That's not what is implied. Something that is spiritually horrendous, a kind of trap that we realize, want to get out of, or feeling helpless. That's a real implication. So, what is mentioned here is Deha Dara Sutadishu. So we should get out of this moha, delusion, this trap-like obsessive attachment to our own near dear ones, because you find many crimes are committed by people because they are so terribly attached to certain things, certain people, they do that. That's interesting. It's not the attachment of a Christ to his disciples, not the attachment of the great Buddha to his disciples, not the attachment of God to creation, maybe if you think of Christian theology. That is not what is implied here. What is implied is his kind of obsessive attachment that becomes a psychological and spiritual trap, a prison. So moham jahi mahamrutyum deha dara sutadishu yam jitva munayo yanti tadvishno paramam pada. So getting out of this terrible trap-like obsession and get rid of this great death in the form of delusion, then only you can attain the highest spiritual liberation. And that's the real meaning of spiritual attainment or nirvana or liberation, moksha. There are many examples I can give. Those of you who have read Buddha's dialogues with his disciples. Now whenever a disciple asked him questions, he was very compassionate. But do you think he was obsessed? He did not have any moksha. He did not have any moha. He had no delusion. The ways how Buddha talks to Ananda and other disciples. Some of them came with questions, with problems in life. And Buddha, with great compassion, with great sympathy, answers these questions slowly, with all patience. But he was totally detached. But he was full of compassion. So that is a classical example of detachment. Detachment is not the opposite of attachment as we understand that word in English dictionary. Otherwise, there is a great danger that frequently Vedanta is often depicted wrongly as a life-negating philosophy. And an answer to remedy this, sometimes people play different tricks. They say Vedanta in business management, Vedanta in Wall Street, Vedanta in Buddha bowl, Vedanta cafe, Vedanta pizza, you find. So Vedanta is brought into all sorts of context. Instead of explaining what Vedanta implies, sometimes Vedanta also can be used to increase the stock markets, Vedanta also can be improved to boost economy. No, Vedanta is not about that. Vedanta is all about higher spiritual pursuit of higher goals in life. Frequently, they are not able to, and they have no access to the original scriptures of Vedantic text. So what they do, in their own helpless manner, they bring Vedanta to Manhattan, Vedanta to Wall Street, Vedanta to business management and things like that. That is an important thing to remember. So Shankaracharya says, Moha is Mahamrityu, the great death. And to get out of this, we should try to get out of this Moha. How do we do this? We should understand the importance of physical body, but remember, it is only a means, it's an efficient tool, it's a wonderful method, wonderful instrument for us to go beyond obsession with the body and mind. That's an important thing to remember. In fact, Shankaracharya is, you often find in this book, he emphasizes this again and again. Because the language is very strong and doesn't mince words. See next verse. Tung mansa rudhiras nayu medu majjasti sankulam purnam mutra purishabhyam sthulam nindamidam vapuhu. Idam vapuhu, this body, external body, sthula sharira, gross body. So has given a whole list of things. We can read translation. And he says this body is something despicable, something body as body. From the physical perspective, as I mentioned, just a skin bag which contains lot of things that we will wash our hands with hand sanitizer if we touch it when it comes out of it. That's why that the famous verse that Shankaracharya says in another context, sense of humor, Tum mamsa rudhiras nayu medu majja asti samkhadir deha bahisthoja pinadastasmat na bhakshati kakaihi. Kakaihi na bhakshati means whatever comes out of this skin bag, which we call the human body, even crows won't eat. That's the idea behind. So the same human body from two different angles. On the one hand, it is a magnificent, wonderful tool to achieve greatness, spiritual greatness. Buddha had a healthy body. That's why he could walk all the way from Lumbini to Bodh Gaya, sit there for meditation for years and become liberated, the great Buddha. He had a healthy body. He was not worshipping the body. He was using his body for a higher purpose. So also Einstein, from a different angle. So also maybe the great artists. But remember, they were not using the body the same way Buddha was using. Still they could elevate the consciousness beyond the bodily level. Without elevating your consciousness beyond bodily level, you cannot do anything great in this world. You cannot do anything great. Charity, service, scientific research, philosophy, mysticism. You can't accomplish any of these things without lifting the mind, the consciousness beyond bodily level. But in the case of Buddha, you find a grand example of how a great sage used his body for attaining something that is beyond body consciousness, the universal spiritual consciousness. Now we can have interaction, you can ask questions. Most welcome. Thank you. Yeah. So before concluding, I have some important announcements to make. Then we'll have interaction. That announcement is, there will be no class on May 23rd. because we have a program in Ulema retreat on Memorial Day, May 26. The next class, Vivekachudamani, will be on May the 30th, 7:30 p.m. Please remember, there will be no class next Friday, that is May 23rd. And there will be no class on foundational texts of Indian philosophy on May 25th. Please remember, there will be class day after tomorrow, but there will be no class on May 25th. And we have an important announcement. Every year we have a grand program in our Ulema retreat. That's about 30-35 miles away from here. We are celebrating the 125th anniversary of the founding of Vedanta Society of Northern California, San Francisco. So our main event is on Monday, Memorial Day, May 26. We have programs involving lectures, classes, meditation, devotional music, and also lunch and snacks will be served to those who are participating. We have Swamis and nuns coming from different centers, and also we have a wonderful musical program. Some of you must have heard the name of a young prodigy, a child prodigy musician, Kailas Brahmvar, assisted by Bobby Coleman, will be musical program to the end of the event. So please remember, many of you must have already done RSVP. Those who have not done it, you can do RSVP through our website, sfvedanta.org, or Google Vedanta Society San Francisco. You can get access to our website. Monday, Memorial Day, May 26, Ulema Memorial Day. Please remember, it's an event that begins at 10 a.m. in the morning. It will be over by around 4:30, and those who are attending the program will be served lunch and light snacks. Okay, thank you. Now we can have interaction. Most welcome.
Swamiji, I have a question about, you mentioned that heaven itself is also not the most evolved state.
Who?
Heaven?
Eh?
Heaven.
Heaven, oh yeah.
There's another level.
Heaven,
Does that
yeah,
mean
correct.
that heaven also is is temporary in nature, and it's essentially,
Yeah.
if you go to heaven,
Yeah.
it's not a one-way ticket, you're kind of coming back.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what the concept is?
I will explain that. That's a very, very important question. Frequently I explain this at the beginning of any long discussion. Heaven, as understood in Abrahamic religions like Christianity, Judaism, etc., is different from what it implies in Vedanta or Hinduism. Heaven, especially in Christianity, has some kind of a connection with the divine. God in heaven, Father in heaven, like that. That is not the heaven in Vedanta or Hinduism. In Hinduism and Vedanta, heaven is a place where you go and live for a very long time to be born again in this world as normal human beings. It is the result of all your actions, all good actions in this world, which you have done with a great desire. Suppose you have done some wonderful charity, things like that in this world, the great desire. Those good actions will help you, will cause you to go to heaven. And you have long years of enjoyment, but not permanent. You'll be born again after exhausting all those meritorious deeds, the results. But in Christianity, heaven has got a divine association So, City of God and St. Augustine's. So it is a kind of sattvic world with close proximity with God and angels. That's the meaning of heaven in Abrahamic religion. But in Vedanta it's different. So in Vedanta, you need to go beyond, even beyond desire for heaven to attain liberation. Because if you go to heaven, still you'll be coming back, you'll be born again in this world. And again continuing this cycle. So also in Buddhism. In Buddhism, heaven is not so much described the way it is done in Hinduism or Abrahamic religions, but the Praditya Samutpada, we are discussing Buddhism right now in the Sunday classes. So when you do a lot of meritorious deeds, you are fit to go to a higher world, where you enjoy the results of your good actions. But that won't take you beyond the cycle of rebirth. You'll be born again in Buddhism and Hinduism and in all the religious traditions of Indian subcontinent, which believe uniformly in rebirth and reincarnation. So this is an important point, area of difference. Many people, when we read the translations, simple translations, it's not possible to make this clear in every single word. You should not have a desire for heaven. And in Christianity, the prayer is God in heaven, Father in heaven, with the highest spiritual accomplishment. That itself translates to nirvana or liberation as understood in Vedanta and Buddhism. When Buddhism and Hinduism, it means heaven means a higher place, greater than this world, where you have all the wonderful things. You have a longer life, a divine celestial body, you live for a very long time, having all the enjoyments. Still you are not liberated, you are not spiritually enlightened, you will be born again. That's a great difference, okay? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the lecture, Swamiji. So the concept you were talking about, the moha and Mrityu, the great death. I guess some people talk about like the idea of I, me, mine. That's I, me, mine. Like the idea of, this is my body, this is my possession.
Yeah.
So there's a song, I think not Ravi Shankar, but George Harrison, I think he had back in the day, I, me, mine. So is this moha mrityu is kind of another form of what I guess we would call ego. It's I guess a misidentification that we're not the Atman, and as a result it causes delusion and suffering and all that. And I know you talked about it elaborately, but that seems, I don't know if there's anything else you could say about, I would assume this evolves, looking at it from a yoga point of view, I guess, from the vritti, samskara, vasana, and asmita, misidentification, which leads to avidya, which leads to dukkha, I would guess, looking at the theory. So anyway, if you could speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, in fact, this moha functions as I, mine. This is how moha actually functions in our life. And that again leads to creation of unhealthy vrittis, vasanas and samskaras, which reinforces this moha, delusion. So to get out of this, we must, if you are a devotee of God, you can say, well, I am servant of God. All this belongs to the Lord. So Sri Ramakrishna says, the ego, is very difficult to get rid of it. So you treat ego, if you feel I am very egoistic, I am a proud servant of God. I have ego, but I shall do good things. I am a servant of God. So ego also can be refined, can be elevated to by giving it a higher purpose, higher function. Then you get out of ego. When we use the word he is egoistic, we are talking about a person who doesn't have this feeling, I'm a servant of God. Or you see, and I tell you something very interesting. Without giving a higher function, higher purpose to ego, you cannot do anything in this world. You can't accomplish anything in this world. Great men who have great ideals in their life, even politicians, like a man like Gandhi or Lincoln, that's very strong determination. One may say they are very egoistic, but they were putting their ego for a higher purpose, to accomplish something great and grand in life. That kind of strong, steely determination is part of spiritual qualification. So Lord Krishna in the Bhakti Yoga says, an ideal devotee should be very, very strong in his mind. He should have a steely determination. So that's why you find many great men and great women who accomplished great, wonderful things, served the nations and humanity. They were very strong, they had very strong mind. But Jesus Christ had a very strong mind. Otherwise, he would have stopped the struggle and gone somewhere else. Very strong mind. Buddha had a strong mind. Without a strong mind, do you think a prince will walk 1300 miles away from his palace and walk? In those days, there was no road through forests. Then sit under a tree and he says, Ihasane sishyuti me shariram tugasti mamsam cha vilayam chayatuhu aprapya siddhim bahujanma durlabham naivasanat kayamatas chalishide. In the Lalita Vistara. Buddha says, I am going to sit under this tree. So meditate, I shall attain liberation. It may be possible only after several life cycles. Let my body all be reduced to Tugasti mamsam cha vilayam chayadu, be reduced to skin, flesh and bones. Still, naivasanat kayamadas chalishidi. Without attaining that supreme purpose, supreme enlightenment, I won't get up from the seat. Aprapya siddhim bahujanma durlabham. Without attaining the liberation, that enlightenment, which is possible to attain only after several life cycles of struggles. Without getting that, I won't get up from the seat. Look at the man's determination. So this is for Buddha. Great enlightened politicians, scientists, mystics. Most of the mystics received only post-mortem recognition. They were canonized mostly, all of them after death only, after 100 years sometimes. They were persecuted. No, the Catholic Church were not smiling at them. Where actually they were trying to establish a direct connection with God. Sidestepping the church. Certainly it was not, the popes and the clergy were not amused. Think of these great mystics. Many of them had to suffer persecution, but they had steely determination. You read St. Teresa of Avila's autobiographical notes. What a strong mind. Without a strong mind, you cannot achieve anything in life, in spiritual or even in art, literature, music or science. So, in a way, we are employing ego in a happy fashion, giving it a good job. Sri Ramakrishna uses very simple, Sri Ramakrishna is supreme in the use of simple language. He says, this ego is difficult to get rid of. Give it a good job. You read it. So,
give it a promotion, as you would say. Give it a
promotion. But Sri Ramakrishna put in much more forceful language. Because he had experienced the truth of this in his life. And he didn't resort to sophistry or dialectical skills in interpreting. He was straightforward. So you do one thing. Although you're very egoistic, use that ego for some grand, good purpose. In American history, of course, you take example of George Washington, maybe Lincoln are examples. Great men, the politicians, but they used their determination, power of determination, for a higher purpose, so to speak. Gandhi was so fastidious. His tenacity was such a small little person. He has such a strong mind, difficult to shake his faith. Starving, fasting, but he won't stop. So he lifted his mind beyond his body. That's why he could fast for 21 days, fasting until death. You tried fasting 5 days, in 6th day your mind will be different. Okay? To such an extent that P.G. Wodehouse, in one of his stories, is a very wonderful example of British humor. He, in a very pleasant manner, he says, Gandhi was always fasting. That's why he was always hungry. That's why he was giving so much of headache to British rulers. When you're hungry, you feel irritable. So you give a big problem in a funny manner. The peel of an orange, something like that, story P.G. Wodehouse. So Gandhi was such an outstanding example of strong determination of a politician, bordering on spirituality, who used his strong determination for a higher purpose in life. So also Einstein in science and technology. So also Lincoln, he kept his idealism intact throughout. The mystics for their own mystical experience. So ego, don't think ego is bad. Ego is good when properly employed, when you give it a good job, something good to do. It's become a useful servant. Okay, thank you. So I want to emphasize again, those of you who have not done RSVP, you can do today for Olima Memorial Day, May 26, Vedanta Retreat, Olima in Marin County. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.